Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another LCS report. I'm Rob. He's Nick, and we start off asking the age-old question. Nick, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you? You look, I don't know if it's well rested or you did skincare or something. You have like a radiance to you today.
Well, thank you. I did shower directly before this episode, so maybe
That'll
that
do
helped. Most of the time I shower like in the morning, and we record a couple hours after I've been up already. So maybe it's that, or maybe it's just I'm creating content that I like right now. So that's been good
Well,
too.
I'm happy to hear that. And frankly, 2 hours is plenty of time to need another shower after working in esports. So, you
God,
know,
yeah, lordy. Uh,
so,
but I
but I'm,
appreciate
I'm
the
glad to hear that,
compliment,
man.
and I hope that you're
Yeah,
doing well. I know we've got a lot to go over today.
I'm
Um,
excited. I've been waiting for this one for weeks.
yes, because it was released about a month ago, I think. What our votes were. We've
Yeah,
prefaced them. We have talked about them in the past. They are live now, and so I think it's important, that we maybe go through. Maybe I'll just list each of our individual ballots, and then we'll just kind of talk about how things ended up shaking out. Plus, what our feelings are on all of it. I'm actually gonna bring up the actual LCS um, spring ballot. So to give everybody a quick reminder, here's who won. So first team All Pro was Bwipo, River, Quid, Bvoy, and Busio. Then you had in the second team All Pro Impact Inspired, who went on to destroy Jensen, which was a huge surprise in that interview. I'm sure you probably saw that. Jojo Pyun, Berserker, and Ayla. And then third team was Sniper, Blabber, Jensen, Masu, and Vulcan. And I don't know if we'll go into coaching staff or anything at the split. I think we were kind of in agreement on that. Our MVP um, ballots were a little different. Somehow I didn't see that Quid won MVP instead of River. I don't know how I didn't see that, or maybe I just don't remember seeing that. But that's, I'll be honest, I feel like that's egregious. So maybe we will need to talk about that as well. But that's who we had. Now, here's who Nick and I had. Now, Nick's was incorrect. We have talked about
just a few
this.
of them, just a
There are a
couple of them.
few things that were incorrect. I will say for mine I think was right. I had Sniper, River, Quid, Bvoy, and Ole as my first team. My second team was Bwipo inspired, Jojo Pyun, FBI, and Busio. And then third team, Impact, Blabber, Jensen, Berserker, and Ayla. So I feel pretty good about mine. Now, Nick, do you want to give us yours and I'll read them off, or do you want me to read off what they put or what got mixed up?
Yeah, I can just read it off. So what I
Sure.
have listed here for my All Pro first team is Whippo, River, Jensen, Bvoy, and Core JJ. That's almost right. And honestly, I should have just I like part of me is like I should have just kept quiet because I look like a genius after course playoffs. But
Yep, yep.
no, in what's gonna make me probably look worse, I had Ole All Pro first, from Immortals. I know, right? So and then my second team was Sniper inspired Quid. Wait, no, sorry. Sniper inspired Quid. This says Berserker in Isles.
Yes.
I did not have Berserker there.
That's
I had Tomo there actually.
what I thought.
And then third All Pro, I had Castle, Blabber, JoJo, FBI, Ole. Um, that's what it says here, which is actually Castle, Blabber, JoJo, Berserker. I did have third, um, and uh, and then Core was my third support. Uh, so not sure how that happened, or I mean, I did the form on my phone, so like maybe I put something in wrong, but just Scouts Honor, that's what I actually picked, and I think people will think I'm telling the truth, given that a lot of these I actually look pretty smart after playoffs if I had kept these mistakes. with core first. It's like, but I didn't have him. I can't take credit for that. I had him third. I do think that top three is probably higher up than most people had him. But yeah, so that was my actual ballot as far as I thought at least.
Well,
So
and
yeah,
it's worth pointing out you and I with your correct ballot are the only ones that put Ole in the first team vote, by the way. So that would have
yeah,
ended
I
up
feel
being
like people.
spicy in the end.
Yeah, and yeah, but I was looking at like it wouldn't have. I would have made a post publicly about this, except that I looked and any of my correct picks wouldn't have changed the rankings for anybody. I already like
That's fair.
checked the math and everything. Like, so if it had actually affected results, I'd have been like, hey, just to let you know. But it's ultimately, uh, it would just be about my own getting them fixed. Would be about my own ego. That's I would rather just clarify it here. It's already set up, and the final picks would have been the same anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what I had. Uh, and I think I was pretty happy with. I think more often than not, my All Pro votes are end up being different from the majority. I usually think if a player got snubbed, like I know that I messaged you right when we saw B-Boy announced, and I'm like, oh my god, they got it right. Like, because I
Yeah, it
was
was
like,
crazy.
there's no way everyone's gonna agree with this, but I think he has been the best AD carry in the league,
Mm-hmm.
just because a lot of our usual suspects had kind of either been inconsistent or kind of faded during the regular season, So, um, but yeah, man, let's get into it. What do you want to talk about here?
Well, I think that, like I said, I thought the Ole was worth it just because I do looking back, I feel like the way I look at all pros and MVPs, I think are similar to you in the sense that um you like what Ole did for Immortals was more than what I still think that most supports did for their team, especially in a very weak year of support. Like generally you're
Sure.
pretty sure that somebody's here or there on this. So I do want to say that not that everybody else got it wrong because I think Busio had done a good job. I liked the Who He vote by Emily because I still think he, despite the issues that they had done a pretty good job for NRG. Um, I'm a little surprised by the Vulcan vote, I guess, by Travis and a few other coaches, just because I just didn't think that he had
I,
looked
th-
all
I
that
think that
good.
can
But
come. I think that can come from a place of like Berserker. I think the same logic applies to Berserker of like no one was third best for me enough to be over Berserker in the way of like what he's established himself to be, plus what seemed more like synergy issues. There were definitely
that could
certain games
be.
where Berserker, like the Lucian game, everyone knows what game I'm talking about if you watched LCS this spring,
Mm-hmm.
where he looked bad individually. But a lot of the issues we saw plaguing him and Vulcan, by extension, is why I'm bringing this up. I think are synergistic and were synergistic. That being said, yeah, I really had a trouble with the bot lane, like you said. I feel like because this was a split defined by our top sides. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
really look at our bet, like our 100 Thieves and FlyQuest, I think we're very top centric teams
Yes.
relative to the rest of the league. And while C9 wasn't a top centric team, they pretty much won all of their individual advantage games through like mid and jungle advantages, which by extension was like happened more on the top side of the map. Or like sometimes Blabber would get ahead by going top, and it wouldn't be for Fudge, but it would be for Blabber. So like it just felt like the bot lanes were really really hard to evaluate, especially when we have like crazy strong picks like Smolder. Like I had Tomo up there, and I stand by that. But also like I remember I don't remember who it was who I was speaking to, but they're like, I mean, he won like half his games on Smolder, didn't he? Like how hard can we judge that, right? And I'm
Oh, that
like,
was
I don't.
us. We talked about that because I felt that way too.
What's us? Okay, but also I was like, well, the stuff he's doing, even on Smolder, are things that aren't like he was winning 2v2s in lane as Smolder, which was impressive to me, right? But
Yeah.
it was my greater point is just like the bot lane was tough. I think in playoffs we saw some people really step. Like I thought Busio, who I was surprised got the All Pro vote. I felt just kind of like, oh, the first placed team or whatever, their support got it, but he really showed up in playoffs. I thought he really played really well.
I agree.
Even if FlyQuest ultimately lost, I thought that he had a very, very consistent playoffs throughout, and it was the best level I think we've seen him play at the LCS so far. But bot lane was just tough with it. The meta was in flux, and it also was like we have strong bot lane picks, but it feels so much more about like how the rest of your map can sort of leverage and siphon advantages through that bot lane, as opposed to So I was really trying to value bot laners who either got advantages themselves or did more for their team in spite of what they were working with. So like the Ole vote was because I think Immortals maybe wins 0 games with that Ole split.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
and for the record, like I don't think that's a horrible team altogether. Like I have Castle in my top 3, and that was not a mistake, folks. Castle's an absolute beast. He's very good. Um, so like, but ultimately, like every time Immortals won a game, it was like the most carry performances from the support position I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was very much like, really, oh, you can't really carry a support, and I'm like, it was like those games, or like games that we used to see, like like Aframu or Hakuho have on Thresh, where it's just like
Oh,
the Q button. The Q button's it's a heat seeking missile. It's a point and click ability all of a sudden, right? Like, and it was that kind of thing where like, yeah, it wasn't like, oh, this guy's a big game. I remember one of their wins was Mask on Jace. Jace is his best pick. He had, he's a good Jace player, but oftentimes it was the setup from Ole still in most of these situations where um, Immortals was doing a lot. And I also think like playing with a really coin flippy ADC, and I'm not talking like coin flip like how like sometimes like at his worst Yon can be coin flip. Like tactical is literally heads or tails. Like
yes.
he's not going even. I actually think that's really hard to work with as a support because yeah, maybe you really know, but you don't really have a lot of nuance. It's going to be harder for you to roam, which has been one of Ole's strengths. Like for a long time. Like people think about him smashing lane with double lift on TL. They also forget when double lift was like just put on Ashe or Ezreal, and Ole was making like pretty incredible plays with the rest of the map, right? So like I was a pretty controversial pick to put him there first, but the main thing, like you said, was I just wasn't really super amazed by any other by. It was hard for me to put anybody over him, and it felt to me like I could have put Ole on any of these teams, and he would have done as well or better than those players. And
Yeah.
so that's why I ended up putting him there.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I think when a character or when a character when a certain position has a person who can play multiple champions and truly affect the game at a higher level to like I wish we had a stat that was like how many wins essentially you like helped your team get, you know.
We need wins above
We
replacement for
do.
League of
We need like a
Legends
baseball
so
type
badly.
stat. And I think that like Ole would be very high on that this split because he made a lot of really great individual plays. He was roaming at the right times. It felt like he was making a lot of good decisions. And, like you said, I do think that Immortals are a no-win team without him. And that's not to take away from Castle. It's not, to really, I'm not trying to just crap on everybody else on that team, but it's pretty obvious. And I mean, playing for Immortals by itself is a debuff. So the fact that he can do what he did is impressive. I mean, it is. It is.
Yeah,
And it
no,
shows
I mean, fair.
determination. And so I
Yeah,
loved that, like, all split you kept telling me, like, hey, he's playing really well. Like, I'm seeing this. And so I just started watching him specifically in their games, and I just couldn't believe some of the things that he was doing, the setups that he had. And I watched the rest of the team just fumble the bag consistently. And
yeah,
it reminded
like
me how just little support can actually do sometimes, depending on the meta. And the meta was not kind to the bot lane in general. And clearly, like, I think in a different, maybe even more bot centric meta, we might have even seen an Immortals team that was in playoffs solely based on Ole getting tactical ahead enough to be able to like just carry games straight up. So we haven't seen, something truly like that. Even with like the Zeri meta, maybe, that might be the last one that I can really, really think of. I know Kai'Sa's been annoying and everything like that, but I don't know. Just it was really cool to see for Ole. And I think kind of the next step we have to take here is B-Voy, because if I'm being honest with you, dude, like I was a little gun shy this split based on the Berserker controversy I had last split. So I was really trying my best to not miss anybody. And so I went through like every stat. I rewatched a couple, highlights at least of games and stuff. And I just really, really thought about the conversations you and I had. And I was like, dude, this Shopify team, like, is legitimately pretty solid. And had they had B-Voy at the beginning of the split, I really think they might have made playoffs. Like, and watching the way he played, and considering how much I didn't like him when he was on Misfits, and then to see what he did down in the Brazilian league, I think it was, is where he was,
Yeah.
right? Um, I was like, there's no way he's gonna do that again coming over here because we even talked about it, I think on the first episode. I was like, just keep Wild Turtle in. He's doing fine, and Wild Turtle did
Yeah.
do okay. He was fine, but B-Boy was masterful in some of these fights, and I'm just glad that we weren't the only ones to see it. Not that like we're oracles and we know everything and we should have been able to predict this, but it was just really fun to be able to vote for him because he came in
Yeah.
with such little fanfare and nobody seemingly was giving him any credit. And to see him get first team All Pro was probably so unbelievably satisfying to him in a league where you have some pretty high level top tier talent and young talent, especially coming up. The Shopify team, again, just interests me so much this offseason.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's vindicating for him, I think, right? And
Yeah.
also for Revan. I mean, like you said, Wild Turtle had strong Lenny phases. I mean, he looked like better than he looked on Immortals a year or so back. That like or like those. It was 2 games, right? But it was the best
Yeah.
he'd looked in a couple of years,
Oh, no doubt.
and it could be very easy. I mean, we saw TSM do this with Insanity when they had Ruby. Ruby has visa issues. Insanity's the player now, right?
He's
So
indeed.
so really vindicating for Bevoy and for Revan for sticking with his boy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also uh, it illustrates, like you said, we had some of our usual big hitters, like not really like NRG was a constant roller coaster of up and downs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yon and Core didn't really get solidified consistent as a laning force till the playoffs, and Yon's positioning was a issue until the playoffs, I think, in team fights a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, but quietly you have this guy doing, I mean, playing 2 less games than everybody, but still like playing just so consistently. And it's really also like what he did, like when Spotify wasn't able to do much. Like he was never the mistake player. He was never the reason they were losing something. He was always holding his own. He was, in the way that like not to backtrack, but just a big part of my Ole vote was how you said about we're talking about the bot lane. I think this applies to B Boy as well. About that while the bot lane has not been kind, it's weird to say that, like because you have picks like Smolder and stuff like that, and really powerful champions, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy in terms of the role.
Yes.
And with guys like Ole, for example, you have Tactical's not a good scaler. It's almost like Immortals had like a worse Smolder than everybody else. And Ole also with no pushing lanes was leading the like he's top 3 in every vision stat. So like little tiny things like that, if you look at the consistency in B-Boy stats don't alone make the player, right? We've talked a lot about that before. But when it's this close and it's ambiguous and it's like, well, it's not Yon. Somehow it's not Berserker this year. For as good as FlyQuest was, and as Masu's had a fine rookie split, I was surprised. I think that it's I think he stepped up in playoffs, but I didn't he wasn't anywhere near my all pro.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and maybe I'm stupid for that now, right? But what I'm saying
No.
is that it's exciting when a player who does the right things, the unsexy things right, gets recognized. So I was
Yes.
surprised and happy to see that. It reminded me a bit of on Phoenix One back in 2017 spring when Arrow won the MVP, and I was really happy about that, but also very sure he wasn't going to win it. It was going to go to a flashier individual player like I don't remember who was the other the big likelihood on that in that year. But the point is that
It's probably
Arrow won
Beerus.
the MVP, and it was yeah probably right. But it was nice for Arrow because Arrow people he did a bunch of things right that nobody really like focused on, and they weren't because it was a bunch of really great Jin and Ash play and some of the best Jin and Ash games we've seen in the LCS. But it's not necessarily big epic pentakill mechanical outplay. And it was I think that Wall Boy had good mechanics. He did a lot of the things right that were like not that went unnoticed by the average fan, I think. And I think it's nice to see that the all pro votes reflected who I did think was the best AD carry. And I don't know, people just they're averse to picking a player on a 7th place, 6th place, whatever team. Uh but I'm over here with the last place support as my all pro. So what the hell do I know? You know what I mean? Like,
You know a
but
lot more than most people, my dude.
yeah, yeah. But it's yeah. It was nice to see B Boy, and I think there's some people surprised. But it's like I don't really think like I don't think Meech or Masu were the focal points of their team. Berserker was too inconsistent. Like if you go down the list, we only have 7 other teams, and it's actually pretty clear. Like like that B boy was the best. And I'm excited to see what Shopify can do with him actually having not just the full split of games to play, but remember that's also even more important than the 2 games miss is that's his first weekend with the team practice
Yeah.
time, like ramp up. Like that's a big difference when you only play 14 games on stage and you're up against teams who have been practicing for 3 weeks. Like that's huge. So props to B-Boy both for his level of play, but also under the circumstances, like we could be talking about him like, in a different scenario, he might have gotten, top 3 all pro. It's like, no, he was still first all pro against all circumstances. And that was pretty cool to see. I also think that maybe Zazel deserves some credit for that, but I couldn't put Zazel in my top 3 because I already had a bottom 2 support in my top 3. And I'm like, I can't do, like, if I put Ole, Isles, and Zazel as my top 3 supports, someone's going to come for my head.
It's a
No,
but see
no,
that's why
Yeah,
that team
that's
is
not that's
fun,
not that's
man.
not that's not why I changed it. Also,
No,
I
but
think, I still think it was close. But like that's bot and support. Like all the players are. We saw the LCS have a lot of parity in general this
mhm.
year. This split, and I think that like specifically in the bot lane, like I think now that playoffs is over, there's some clear like okay, Team Liquid clearly is the best bot lane in the league, whether they won the title or not. That was going to be true. Like as of like round 2 of the playoffs, I think they were really
Yeah.
good. Um, but we have so much parity in this league, and it just shows in like these bot lanes. I have no idea what's going to happen, because we have guys not playing to their level, and we have other guys who are coming out of nowhere and surprising, and a few unknown quantities. So it's really a really interesting spot for bot and support specifically, which is why I feel like I know we're spending a lot of time on these 2 roles, but the other roles, and we'll get into them, are a lot more open and shut. I think like pretty much everybody had the same 3 or 4 people, and then it was a matter of who you ordered over who. But bot and support was like a merry-go-round of a bunch of different picks. It felt like for people.
Well, and yeah, and I think that is I think what made this split fun in its own right was that like we thought C9 would just kind of blow. Like I truly just expected to just put all C9 players in my All Pro initially, like start the season, right? That didn't happen. None of them even really made it into first All Pro, which was the first time I think since like many years ago. I can't remember. It had been a long time. They
Yeah,
put it
I
out
just
there, which was
realized it's
crazy.
probably been a really long time since
I
because
think it
even
had
on
been
their
like
third or fourth
5
place
years,
finishes,
maybe. Yeah, it
yeah,
had been a
like
very long time. And you would
yeah,
think with
dang.
Berserk, you would think with Berserker, JoJo, and Blabber at a minimum, one of those 3 would have made it. The
Yeah, like that's
JoJo was the
crazy to not have
closest.
someone there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like when Vulcan's your 4th best player and you don't have someone on paper and you don't have someone in the first All Pro, it's like whoa and wrong there, right? Like that's
Yep.
crazy.
And to give you context, that 2017 NALCS spring split vote for MVP was Arrow, Hanser, and Bjergsen.
Hanser, and do you remember why it was Hanser?
Yeah, he
Because
had
that
that.
was that
That was the
was
headband era, dude. That's when he was just popping that bleep off.
and and it was also when
God
Wild
almighty.
Turtle Doublelift wasn't there and Wild Turtle was there and TSM played her on top side instead of
That's
bot side for
right.
one split and Hanser went Super Saiyan. Good times. But yeah, no.
I miss
Uh
Hanser in the league, man. I know he wasn't great for TSM last year, but man, Prime Hanser and Prime Broken Blade. Like TSM always had such fun top laners too. You had Hooney up there as well. Like, uh
We
I
just mentioned
reminisce.
TSM Phoenix 1 and Hanser in the last 2 minutes. We're dating ourselves. We need to
It's
get back
fine. It's
to we're
fine.
dating ourselves.
We're just being, we're gonna be those old heads in 10 years that are gonna be talking about, oh, remember when I voted for B-Voy? We thought Ole was so good. Oh shit, man. But yeah, I mean, look, top was surprised. I was surprised a lot of people put Impact in first and second. I will be honest with you. I felt like it had to be Sniper Bwipo, right? Like Sniper had more solo kills than I think any other top laner. Bwipo, I may be undervalued, to be honest with you. I think it's just because I valued Inspired so much, to be honest with you. I think that was the issue there. Not that Inspired doesn't deserve to be valued very highly, because he is a hell of a player. But um and then like even River, I'll be honest, I think River got disrespected. The fact that he didn't win MVP is crazy to me. Like I don't know why I don't remember this. Like maybe I just didn't see the All Pro vote come out or the MVP vote come out or whatever. But like that to me is almost more egregious than us talking about these All Pros because I guess like Umpty started to get some votes. Maybe we could talk about that for a second here. For some third place votes.
Oh, really? I
One
didn't realize
person,
that.
Arsh from NA Men, put Umpty second on their vote. I don't know if that was just Arsh that did it or if it was the NA Men team, but
I think it's just
um,
his.
okay. I didn't know for sure, but um, it's just man, like yeah, like Arsh didn't put he put River and Sniper down in third team All Pro. So the most interesting one for sure in terms of the third party people, um, which was interesting to say the least. But like, yeah, I mean, I think that All Pro. I'm glad it's not tied into contracts right now. I think in the future it may be because that's how it is in traditional sports. And I think that bonuses and stuff may come from that in the future. Um,
Mm.
but it was nice to see the parity. I still felt like the top lane, jungle and mid lane were pretty consistent, right? I mean, mid lane it was Quid, JoJo, or Jensen. There was really no other choices there.
Yeah.
Um, I had
It
hopes
was a
that
matter of how you had them like ordered at that point,
yeah,
right? Like I don't really
exactly.
like who's the fourth there.
Yeah.
It's a big drop off after those three.
Yeah. Actually, there were a couple people that did put Umpty in their top. Quid put Umpty and Inspired put Umpty, but we know Inspired had a lot of respect for Umpty, but even before playoffs started. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
definitely
I think
interesting things
sorry,
on
go
this
ahead.
one. No, I was just gonna say, I just think that like there's plenty of intrigue on these ballots. I'm not gonna like blast anybody because I just feel like this year, um, although I don't know why Sage put tactical at 80 carry. That one's not gonna call you out, Sage, because the rest of your ballot's pretty awesome. I guess maybe you're just a tactical fan. I mean, we all have that one. Like I've been wanting to put Insanity, like since he came back up, and I just can't
Yeah.
find the right way to put him in there. But it's like we all have that one player that you're like,
For me,
oh man, I just want to throw him in
yeah.
there. Um,
Yeah, I try to I think I know I have like some I know I have biases towards certain players and personalities, so when it comes to like the votes of like I think that I may have like, oh, I think this player could be doing better than like I think maybe like Ole for example, but I really did try to like in terms of the gameplay itself, just factor in the gameplay, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's important or like biases are always gonna happen come and like it's things like for example like, I didn't have Quid higher I had River above Inspired and I didn't have Quid higher because I really think like and I had Weipo above Sniper also because I really just I was so high on how much River brought to 100 Thieves that I was like, well, I don't think that Sniper and Quid are also better than Buipo and Jensen.
yeah.
And I felt a little vindicated. I mean, not unfortunately, 100 Thieves faded in the playoffs, and I think that a lot of that had to do with River not feeling well. Um, and you can talk about experience playing a part. Quid and Sniper are both pretty young players, especially Sniper. But uh, you know, uh, I agree with you that River got robbed. Made me sad. I mean, congrats to Quid. I do think Quid played really well, and I think I maybe undervalued him a little bit. But I mean, in the playoffs, River wasn't able to do River things as much, and that team did not. Their solo lanes did not look as ferocious. That's all I'm saying. Whereas, um, you know, Sniper himself was like, yeah, Buipo's the best top laner in the league. I do think Sniper was second. But I think that yeah, it's a bit more open and shut, but I think people who picked Impact look like geniuses, obviously. Uh, but this is really like small sample size stuff, right? Is like we could be talking about this so differently now that we've seen playoffs play out. Of like if we just had like a slightly longer season, team would hit their stride. Maybe the inter playoffs was the favorite, and they're like the second seed or something like that. And then it's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, those guys were all pro, duh. So it's just like it's also I mean, every episode we should just change the name of the show, but it's like it's when you're playing
Best
14 stage
ofs.
games, it's really hard to judge any of this, and so I think it's a lot of like remember, these were things made before the playoffs, and when you only play 14 games before your playoffs, and then play like Team Liquid did, they played 19 games in like 16 days in playoffs compared to 14 games across what 8 weeks because of the
10
breaks.
because of the
Yeah, so
breaks.
like,
Oh yeah, no,
so
8
like,
because of the breaks. Yeah.
so it's just like, yeah, I mean,
Well, and
it
and
just
multiple meta changes. Like you don't get comfortable. Like there's just no comfortability. Like yeah, we're gonna change the name of the show to Best ofs. Uh, Sponsored by the group of every person on the planet who wants best of threes back. Um, and like they're probably, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, they're just not gonna do it. They can't convince the Riot higher ups that it's worth it, right? But um, man, maybe you know what, the players should all boycott unless they go to back to best, because the players
let's
want
go.
it too, right? It's
Let's
not
do a
just.
walkout for something way less important than the last walkout. But I mean,
I mean,
like
look, this is still important though,
I'm
because
on
dude,
board.
this can impact salaries and stuff too, right? Like that
You're
is
right.
important. Like
You're
it's
right.
an integral part of the game, because think about it this way, like even if it's not for them directly, if the league gets better, the players coming up will make more. Like they will make more money by the league being more interesting to watch. Like there's just a cascading waterfall of things that happen if you make changes like this. I don't know if it's going to help. I really don't. But you'd have to hope that it would. And it does make these things, because like
Yeah.
to me, so I will say, I'm looking at this, by the way, for MVP, it was pretty much just third party and then Jat and Emily. That was it. It was all of us, third party people, and Jat and
Uh,
Emily that voted for River
for
for first choice for MVP, which is just
players were really high on Quid, man. Like
well,
players
actually,
really thought well of Quid.
it
It
wasn't
feels like.
even well. I mean, there were a lot of them that voted for Quid. It looks like, for sure. Did Quid vote for himself? No, he voted for Bwipo. Okay, or for Busio. He actually voted for Busio as the first All Pro. That's interesting. Okay, but like, yeah, I mean, I guess the players were really high on Quid. I mean, Quid was great, but we've
Yeah,
talked about
usually
that,
good.
right? Like, he was the main focus for me. 400 Thieves, but I felt like it was that tandem, and to see even River not getting that many second All Pros, it's just like the fact that there are people who don't even have River on their ballot, to me, is wild.
Crazy, yeah.
Wild.
Like, and I get him finishing third if Quid won because I think like 100 these votes got split and they just got split in favor of Quid,
Yeah.
right? Because it was Quid inspired. Was it Quid inspired River? Was the final tally?
Let me bring it up 1 second.
I think inspired finished with the second most votes, right? Or was it Whippo?
Here, I can bring it up right here. No, it was still River. It was still
Wait,
River.
River was second still?
Yeah, it was Quid River inspired.
Oh, okay. Well, dang, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's
don't
just
know.
that
I
like
mean,
it wasn't even close. Quid won by 14 points or whatever they consist of.
oh my God, yeah, I forgot it
So
was that. That's what I mean. Yeah, I guess I was surprised it was like that big of a
that's what I'm
margin. Yeah.
saying. Like I'm not I was so convinced, I think, that it was River, that I didn't even look. Like, I'm not kidding. I think that that's like where my brain was. Is I was like, yeah, like it has to be River, right? Like, I mean, that team doesn't. The fact that they finished 10-4, they don't do that without River. And I will say, like, look, I think I'm gonna defend this one for us to the degree of, I think everybody else is just wrong. And I know that sounds really bad because I never want to do that, but we've seen what happens. Like, Quid was great, and he was by far the most improved player. There's no doubt about that.
He had a great split.
He was awesome. He was so good, right? Like, I mean, I put him first team All Pro for a reason over JoJo, who I absolutely love. Like, I am a stan for JoJo when it comes to everything that we want in the LCS, and I
But Quid
need
was
it to be
better.
him.
Yeah.
But Quid was better,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like, but we know how it goes in the LCS. If your jungler's not good, it doesn't matter, right? And River was the one making all the plays. Like, that top side doesn't do anything. Well, not anything. They don't do what they did. A lot of do's and dids in here, and does is lots of D words in here, but they do not function without River doing what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I think that even with a good jungler, but with a different type of jungler, I think that without River, 100 Thieves misses playoffs altogether.
I don't know if I'd
Like I
go that.
think
Well, I might go
I
that far actually. I think you're
I,
right.
I don't think that would be with anybody. I think that I genuinely believe that with like the wrong type of jungler. Like I don't
Sure.
think I think that like if another like there are other LCS junglers who I think could have come in and they still would be make playoffs, but they wouldn't be anywhere near the top four. And with the wrong type of jungler, with a more selfish or a carry style jungler, this team I think finishes seventh and Shopify's in playoffs instead. Like
Yeah,
um
I could see that because the bot lane was
it,
not doing enough. They were good, but they weren't doing enough.
Well,
And
it's just they that every like you said, all action happened through River. Like it wasn't even the
yeah,
bot lane wasn't doing enough for 100 Thieves because the plan is like, okay, let River do everything, and we're gonna play our parts because this is River's show. River is the director of this play,
yeah,
and you guys are just the players, and that's fine. But I guess I personally felt that way because of again and because of how we know for a fact the only thing we know for a fact about 100 Thieves is that River started playoffs not feeling very well and they looked worse. And
yeah,
I'm not saying playoffs should factor into the votes because that's not how timing works. But what I will say is we got to see what 100 Thieves looks like when River isn't on his game. It was called playoffs and it wasn't that great. And there
yeah.
were other factors there. Playoffs experience, it's a different animal. So I'm not trying to say that River was 1v9ing the whole thing. I'm not saying that if you put me in for Quid, I could suddenly play a Zir just because River's my jungler. That's not what's happening here.
Well, no, but I
But
mean, I think Sniper's the prime example to your point.
yeah,
Like, there's
there
a
you go.
certain level of comfortability when you trust that the other players around you are doing what they need to do, right? So if he knows that he can be more aggressive because River's going to back him up, right? Or because he knows River has an advantage maybe in the top, side of the jungle, or they know where the jungler is because River's pretty good at tracking as well. Like that whole thing, and we know for a fact that he was also a main contributor to communications on that team, right? Like I just don't.
Primary shot caller for
Yeah,
sure.
I just don't think that team is there without River. Whereas I think, and this is no slight to Quid because again, Quid was amazing, but I think you could have put like even out there Insanity on this team. And do they go 10-4? Maybe not. Do they go
No,
9-5? Maybe.
possibly.
Like it's a 1-win difference. Whereas with what you're saying with River, that's like a 5-win difference, right?
Yeah,
So
it's exactly that. Like it's
yeah,
if you replace Quid, this team goes from like second to like fourth. If you replace
yes,
River, I think this team goes to like down to sixth or something like that. Like
yeah,
genuinely.
yeah, because they need that direction, and that's where like River, I think, played such a key part. Like I'm actually almost upset that River didn't win. Now, the more that we talk about it, like I
Oh
really am
yeah,
because I think it's a
for
huge
sure.
slight because the jungle also is the most important position right now in the LCS and in most competitive League of Legends. And so if the best player at that position, which a lot of these people voted for River, and yet they still didn't vote for him in even MVP votes and stuff. So it's weird. I'm not super mad about it. It's not going to be like the end of the world. And Quid was obviously very deserving to be up there as well. Although I don't know if
Yeah,
either of us voted for Quid. Let me see.
I'm very
Um,
you very rarely will find me having two players from the same team in my top three voting. And
yeah,
so
you
I had
had River,
I want
Bwipo, Jojo. It looks like.
yeah, I had Bwipo because I thought that while Inspired was good, we had another better jungler in the league. Whereas I thought Bwipo's gap over the rest of the top laners was like the largest positional gap of any role in the league, in my
Sure,
opinion. That one player had over the rest. And then I actually thought JoJo had a really good split. I thought that JoJo pulled a
I did
ton
too.
of weight for Cloud9. I know that I really liked that APA was going at him. Not, I mean, trash talk in general, but him having legitimate. He's like, JoJo can't play mages, you guys, and then often proving that true. But I think that was less about JoJo playing mages and more about C9 needed so badly for him to just do like him to just go button on. He played Azir and Nico, but those are mages with engages. Otherwise, it was like Akali, Silas. Like he played Vayne at one point, right?
Yeah, that
Like
was a weird game.
he that was a weird pick, but my point is that we need to be like he felt the need to be on things that could make their own plays because his team had no synergy, um, and really a lot of I was thinking about that Nico. I can't remember who it was against now, but there was that one Nico game late in the season where he had like five like multi-man like ultimates in a row, like getting at least three players like for like across like a 20-minute span, just like absolutely carrying this team that shouldn't need to be carried by one guy. And
You would
you
think.
know, I think and just to explain, I do think that's like my criteria. I think it values how much weight you pull for your team over specifically overall individual performance uh, in terms of like MVP voting and stuff like that. Simply because I think if we're talking most valuable player, my prime aspect of value is again how much a team would lose if you're being replaced individually. And I think that while C9 had a tough time, like so often their games were like, oh, and JoJo finishes 6-0 with like 3 assists, 95% kill participation, and like 40% of his team's damage. Like he had a crazy good split.
And that's where I
So
think things like kill participation and damage percentage I think are so key. Like I know I tried to point that out when we were talking about stuff. Kills and deaths do matter because they play into that obviously as well. But when you want the deeper stuff, like I think for me personally, kill participation is probably the most important stat that I look at for junglers and supports in particular. And I look at it a little bit for top laners too, because I feel like if they're really involved, I think that that's important as well. Um, I just think it's a pretty important stat overall. Like I think except for pretty much 80 carry, unless if it's really low, which I think for Berserker, his is like one of the lower ones in kill participation, but I think that's because he's doing other things that are important. But in general, like I think that those kinds of things are important, right? Because we saw that even in these games. Like we were talking about the fact that you watched APA's damage per minute go up and up and up and up during these playoffs runs, right? You saw him getting more comfortable. Same with
yeah,
Yon, right? Like these kinds of stats are those underlying stats that really can drive, I think, a lot of decision making. And that's what I do look for. I start with KDA because you're not going to generally pick a player with a terrible KDA at their position. But once you get past that, when you're trying to make these decisions, that's where I kind of dive into the next bit of my analysis, and then I go on gut. Like, how did I feel about them? What did I see from them? I
yeah.
also like to take into account like champions. Like, how many champions are you playing? I value champion diversity quite a bit. Unless if the meta is like literally dragging everybody to play Azir, Corki, all that kind of crap, right? So, you know, kind of glad that Azir was disabled. I do wonder
Azir
how
being
much.
disabled was so awesome.
I do wonder how much that would have made a difference, though, dude. I'm telling you, because like some of the better Azir players didn't go very far.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, when you
uh,
think about it, I think pretty much every mid laner in play. At the same time, I think every mid laner in playoffs was a. Let's
except for
see.
APA, APA is not a great Azir mid lane. He's okay.
I agree, but the one time that we really saw, well, not the one time, but the first time we saw him play it in the split, he actually had a pretty good
He had a
performance.
great
But
game.
I get what you're saying. It could have. I mean, we've seen how still prevalent the champion is. I mean, it has like an 80% global pick rate in patch 14.6, the patch that we're on now. That LCS playoffs wasn't on. We were on 14.5 locked in. But Azir is not just the most frequent pick in the mid lane once again.
He's just
He's
an
the most frequent
unhealthy
pick
champion.
in any role in the
Yeah,
game.
it's an
And I
unhealthy
think that's
champion
what,
for the game right now.
yeah. And I think that's what people miss is they're like, well, it's not like the champion diversity got like that much big. Like Azir, instead of Azir, it was just like Karma to Leah Ari every game, and it's like you're right, and that's not really like there are more issues with mid lane than just Azir. It's like, Azir does everything that every champion does, the best of everything. Like that's the problem.
Zone
It's not just like,
damage, the ability to keep you out.
DPS, so he can take Baron and towers faster. He can spawn towers. He has an engage that also works as a disengage. He can use a dash to couple with that or to get away. He literally does everything. His laning phase is good and he scales. Like it's like what where's the weak point? Like, so
Especially for pro play. The
um
the weak point is his
oh
skill.
my god.
How good are you at the champion? And well, they're pros,
These are
so they're
pros.
gonna be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and so
Exactly.
that's where like
Yeah.
you have to take some of that stuff out. And I think, yeah, I think we've seen, and that's where like even like with Quid and everything, that's where I felt like with River, like his signature champion was J4. I don't know that he played J4 all that often
He
during the
played
regular
it like
season.
once.
Yeah,
And yeah, he
a-
played it like once or twice, once in playoffs and I think once in
and
regular
he smacked
season.
in both
And
games if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. So it's just like, again, I it's not to take away from Quid, Inspired, JoJo, like they all deserved votes. Even Bwipo, right? Like I would say those were
Yep.
probably the other 4 players that deserved votes. If you're feeling really spicy in your nick, maybe Ole. But all jokes
No,
aside, all jokes
not
aside, I
MVP.
was joking. It
No.
was a joke. It was a joke.
You're
Not for
trolling.
full MVP. Maybe that third place vote. You just throw him a little bone
No.
there. But
No.
I think those are the only ones. Was there somebody put Fudge? Who was that? That was Rich from Dignitas. Put Fudge. Umpty got a vote from Inspired. Again, man, Inspired is an Umpty simp, I think.
I mean, I think we saw like again,
Which is not a
like
bad thing.
Umpty wasn't on the same page as like TL was not on the same page, and once they were, like Umpty was like sick nasty. Like he's a really
Yeah,
good
no, he was
jungler.
awesome. Impact
Yeah,
got a
like
vote as well, by the way, from former C9 coach Mithy, which maybe we should spend the last 5 minutes of the show discussing the C9 changes.
we didn't even go over our coaching votes though.
Oh, I mean, like, what?
Speaking
It
of
was 100
coaches.
Thieves. It was everybody. Everybody picked 100 Thieves. I mean, like, what do you mean? What is the
Okay.
point? Like, 100 Thieves.
Okay.
Golden Glue deserved it. Okay, we
Yeah,
will
okay,
give
that's
you a
fair.
quick shout
That's
out.
fair.
It is fair. Golden Glue and company, you guys were freaking awesome. You absolutely earned
Yeah.
this. And you guys should have pushed harder for River to win MVP. Anyways, let's quickly go over this. So, Fudge is out. Mithy is out.
Well,
Apparently.
wait, that's Fudge is not confirmed.
I said
Is he?
apparently. I said apparently.
Oh,
I
I'm
believe
sorry.
this
So
is
Mithy is for sure out.
Mithy
Mithy's
is
officially
gone,
out.
and they brought Reaper back, which is awesome, by the way. I am really interested to see how that's going to go.
Me too.
As Reaper comes back for another round with Cloud9. I think this is his 3rd trip around the
I
sun
want
with
to say
them.
third,
Maybe 4th.
genuinely. Yeah, because
they
it
always
was
seem
like
to
he was
go
on
away.
100 Thieves, and then he came back, and then he went back to Korea, I think, and now he's back on C9, which is funny because also, if you want to talk about Mithy was C9's head coach, and then went to 100 Thieves as coach, and then came back as head coach. So like C9 and 100 Thieves, man, like there's a lot of. It's funny how many like people they've actually shared.
Yeah. And that happens. That happens in sports too, where there are teams that are just like, I think it's just that management styles and certain styles of the way things work, right, in tandem. And so people just want to go to where it's comfortable, where they have the same kind of mindsets, right? And I think that 100 Thieves and C9 maybe have similar management styles, I guess. I don't know. Although that seems weird, considering how involved Jack is and how not involved Nadeshot is, although I don't even know that Nadeshot's really calling the shots over there anymore. That's a whole different thing. But when 100 Thieves was involved during this process, it's true. But I will say we knew that somebody was going to fall on that sword. We were texting each other as it happened. No joke. As this news came out, we had already been texting each other about how there was something coming. We said it. There were not going to not be changes to Cloud9 the minute they didn't make MSI. They were the first team to make a move. Jack was not messing around. Sadly, the head that was cut off was Mithy's. And it had to be. It had to be. It sucks because I don't think Mithy's a bad coach. I just think that this team needs that leader. And I'll be honest, I didn't even think about Reaper, but Reaper is known for kind of being that guy, right? Like I've talked with him before. I think I've done maybe one interview with him in the past. Like this dude is a leader. He's not just a good coach. Like he is a leader of men, and this team needs that. They need somebody to come in and be that voice and have that vision. Like I don't know that he's necessarily the best technical coach at times. I don't know that even he's necessarily the best drafting coach. But when you have a team that's clearly just lacking direction and vision, and what I don't mean like literal vision for in the game, I mean like scope, right? Vision.
Yes.
This guy is that. And I will be honest with you, it instantly makes C9 beyond dangerous. They become, I think, a very different team under Reaper than what we have seen with Mithy. And I'm very excited to see that. I'm hopeful. Yet again.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be tricked.
No, I mean, I think that like people forget that Mithy first became C9's head coach in his first time around because Rainover like stepped down from the
Yeah.
position for mental health. He's like, I want to still be contributing to the strategy, but I can't be the head coach. And people don't realize that's a much different responsibility.
Mhm.
Mithy's had more success in his career as a member of a coaching staff than he ever has as a head coach. I'm not
Correct.
saying that he's not cut out for that position, but we are seeing a pattern here. And when you have a team with this much talent that fails, it's kind of like unless Mithy's somehow winning coach of the split or something like no one. I mean, there were certain points in, and regardless of who was making that choice or whatever, there were certain points in the league where Cloud9 had the worst drafting in the LCS,
Oh, it
like
was horrible.
multiple weeks,
Mhm.
and that doesn't completely fall to the coach, especially like draft is a collaborative conversation. We don't know how much power he's giving to his players, but it's like you said, like what we need is someone who knows the dynamic is going to come in and establish a dynamic, and then we'll see where things happen. You have to have a real hierarchy, because then you otherwise you don't know where things are breaking down. Um, and if there's someone who knows how to implement that, especially on Cloud9, it's Reaper. So I agree with you there. I am interested in seeing. It's funny. Not only were we talking about this when it happened, but we also like I put out like a poll on Twitter, like who do you think like C9's gonna make a change? What do you think it's gonna be? And then like they announced Mithy's firing like 2 hours later. I'm like, I should have posted this yesterday, man. But just with like him with with Fudge reportedly on the way out, it's potential, that people were talking about Thanatos coming over from LCK. Yeah.
Sorry,
Um
I'm trying to look up stuff on Reaper while you're talking because I agree with you. That's why I'm looking away right now. I've got it over on my other screen. Um, did you know that he only actually just like he's only technically been with Cloud9 once?
I thought he came back after 100 Thieves, maybe not though.
No, he did not.
It's okay.
It
It's
was
messy.
weird.
I
Yeah,
don't
he
know.
was there from
Timeline's messy.
2016 to 2020. What's crazier to me than any of this? God, time flies. He has not been their coach for 4 years. Would you have
That's
ever guessed
trippy.
that? Yeah, and this man has been relegated to Japan. That's how far down he went. He has been and he didn't even have a head coaching job going
Hey,
into this split. That is
that's actually
wild to me.
surprising.
That's
Did he
wild.
take some time off or something? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, so it's like, well, see, now this is weird because this is saying that he was the head coach for them in 2022, but then his team history is different. I don't know. That
yeah,
seems
I'm pretty
right.
sure he came back, Matt.
I think he
Um,
did come back. I think you're right. I think something's messed up on the Leaguepedia. Not that they update all that often anymore, sadly. But no, no, I'm wrong. This was when he was with 100 Thieves. So yeah, so with C9, this man won one championship in 2020, um, a championship in 2018, and 2017. So he has three championships and almost never finished pretty much lower than fourth. And I think he was a part of that team, that C9 team that
he
yeah,
was the
finished
head coach
top
for the
four
top
in
four.
Worlds.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
like this is the guy, right? Like this is like Jack's go-to guy, I feel like, to try to reset everything.
yeah.
So um so that was good. So sorry, I was just trying to I was listening to you
No, you're
trying to find
fine.
this information for us because I think that you and I were both confused. But no, he did not. He was coached from 2016 to 2020, and then he
Yeah,
was
and then he
gone.
went to 100 Thieves after that. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah. I
yes,
mean, I think it's also likely, like you said, like that if Fudge is on his way out, like they could bring a Korean top laner in. People are talking about Thanatos since
is that
uh
who we
he's
were
been
talking about?
considered. I don't know if we mentioned it here, but I know that that's like kind of the report is that they're expected to sign him for those who don't know, Thanatos is a hype phenom prospect from Korea. He has been on D Plus's Challenger squad and feels like he's LCK ready. The going story is that he was going to be promoted to D Plus's LCK roster, but their AD carry aiming didn't want to play with two rookies on the top side, and Lucid, their strong rookie juggler, is also very inexperienced. But then apparently, again, I'm not an LCK. I don't have my finger on the pulse there, so but what I understand is that he then didn't want to play another season of Challenger because he felt he's ready. So if C9 wanted to try to make a play, I think that Fudge had probably his worst split in a C9 uniform. Uh, at least since his rookie one. And I don't know what other factors are at play there, but like if you do want to make a one for one roster upgrade on paper, I think that's the only place you can actually really do it. I don't think you get rid of Blabber unless you're making an entire team identity change.
Oh god, they can't get rid of Blabber.
And
That would be
I mean, I think that's the
silly.
only thing, other thing that makes sense, not because
It'd be
it's
Vulcan.
something they
No, it
should
would have
do,
to be
but
Vulcan.
maybe. But I guess what I mean is like Blabber is like kind of like a double lift in the jungle of you sort of have to build a team around his style and to get the most out of him and I don't think they will, but I think if they identify that like, oh, that's like not something we want to do, I think that likely it's just a top lane change and we run it back. I think because Vulcan, if Vulcan had never been with C9 before, that'd be one thing, but I think that he will get more than just one split to prove himself again. And I do think he and Berserker had issues more with synergy than with their individual ability. And it could be a whole different environment, right? Like we don't know if that lack of synergy is coming from the players themselves or just the environment that was put in place, or maybe there wasn't an environment properly put in place, there wasn't a culture established. People really don't think about how important that is
That's true too.
until you don't have it. It's the kind of thing you take for granted until it's not there. So if there's one thing Reaper can do, he can do that. And I'm excited to see what else they do next. And I wonder how much longer till other teams start making moves because Team Liquid and FlyQuest, I don't think we'll see any changes, nor should we.
No.
But yeah. Aside from that, I'm excited to see what other teams do. I hope people don't get complacent. I like that C9's changing stuff. They're not happy with third place, and they shouldn't
As they
be.
should
They
be.
should be extremely disappointed with this roster so far by their own standards. And that sounds harsh. It's like top three isn't that bad. It's like yeah, but like this is that's what it takes to be great.
And it's the most
Um,
expensive roster in the LCS.
by a pretty wide margin. Oh, no, not by a wide margin actually. I think that Team Liquids is
FlyQuest
actually
is pretty
pretty high
expensive
up there
too.
too. Yeah, but like you said, like they're one of the few big spender LCS orgs we have right now, and you got to do better than that when you have the best roster on paper. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. I think top lane is the likely change if there's another one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm still surprised they're not going with Licorice. Like, why go with somebody who's less known? Like, in terms of like, you don't know how they're going to perform at the highest level. Now, I guess like an LCK challenger player, like they have a pretty good chance of being great here, right? Like that's just factually we've seen it happen, right? But
Yeah,
it feels like a move that's also for the future and not just for the present, which is interesting to me. I guess they're just kind of balancing that they think that, and maybe it's what's going to help keep Berserker, right? Because we did talk about that.
I was
Maybe
about to bring that
that's
up.
what needed to happen for Berserker to not want to leave. And, that kind of player is going to be somebody who is going to come in and be very grind heavy, right? Like they're going to practice hard. They are not going to mess around. And I feel like most of C9 are that way. I know that Blabber and Fudge have like a reputation for maybe not being the
Since
best at
M&S put out
practice.
that
Yeah,
Dunzo manifesto, yeah,
yeah, but I don't know how. I think it's just that there's a difference in styles and understanding of that. Where like, especially for Blabber, I mean, he's been one of the top. Even in this down split, if you want to call it, like he still was great. He still had a lot of awesome plays. He still was playing, I think, at a very high level. But this team has to level up. I mean, they're gonna have to go to Korea and spend. I mean, like I would be surprised if they're not already there, if I'm being honest with you.
yeah.
Like soon, like once we get closer to MSI, because I don't know how bad. Like maybe they'll even go to China and practice there for a little while with the MSI teams, right? But we're a couple weeks out from MSI. Where I think we're 3 weeks out now. So I will say I'm interested to see what moves are made because I think teams shouldn't sit on their hands. I think teams need to make moves now. If they feel like there are upgrade opportunities available out there. Again, I think Licorice is the hottest commodity right now. It's really kind of a what team is he going to go to more than if he's going to get a team. And if he doesn't get a freaking team again, then I'm pretty sure Nick might explode. So We'll have to see.
I
I may
I
join you
actually
in
I think
explosions.
it's unfortunately more likely than we want it to be. I think there's a much more likely chance that, especially after seeing Bwipo and Inspired come back from a split and Bwipo come back from a whole year, that there might be a chance that Licorice gets offers and says pass.
Yeah,
I'll see y'all next spring, and it might be the best choice for his. Honestly, it might be.
could be.
So I hope
Yeah,
that's
but he's
not the
not getting
case. I
any
hope some.
younger. Not to be
Oh my
mean,
God, he's like 24. He's fine.
but you know how league teams are. That's not me just trying to be like
Nah.
annoying or anything. It's just it's that is like once you hit the age of like 23, you're considered to be getting too old. That's just the
Yeah,
fact. He's
they're
26,
like
by the
they're
way.
like tech
He'll
bros
be turning
with people they date.
27 in September. So, but he's at a
Oh wow.
position where, to be fair, that doesn't matter as much. Like top lane
Yeah,
and
impact's like
support.
100.
No, that's my point. Is I think top lane and support are the two positions in League of Legends that you could I think very easily play into your 30s, especially if you're really good. Um, I mean, hell, we saw Doublelift in his 30s, old man Doublelift, and he was smacking kids around still with a pretty rough team. So, uh, I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm intrigued to see what they do in the top lane. I hope we see some more teams make some moves very soon. I think some of them will wait to see kind of what some of these other teams do. Playoffs, I believe for the LCK and the LEC are this weekend, are finalizing this weekend, I should say. Finals, I think, are this weekend or the next week. So we'll have those. We'll have a break then. We'll have MSI at the very beginning of May. I believe it's May 1st is when it starts. I had it up here. I'm pretty sure it's May 1st. So, and then we'll have LCS starting again at the beginning of June. So, a lot of good stuff going on. Nick and I will continue to be bringing you guys great LCS content, great LCS discussion, hopefully. At least that's our goal. And we'll make sure to, keep you guys abreast. I don't know what we're going to do for next episode yet. I think we're going to have to kind of talk about that one and let you guys know. So I'll leave you with a mystery preview of next week's episode. But before we head out, as always, Nick, is there anything you want to say? Any wise words for our LCS fans out there?
Um, I think that APA making it back to the international stage a week before Summit is knocked out of MSI contention in Latin America by, if y'all remember, Jose Deodo is
No
poetic
way.
justice on several levels, and I think it's just hysterical. I think it's really funny.
I
I
had
don't
no
know.
idea that had happened. I love that so
Yeah,
much, though.
so yeah, because now as people are going like, yeah, looks like APA needed Summit or Summit needed APA to carry him to international events. I guess I don't know, so but also mostly I wanted to say that not for the spite of it all for Team Liquid discourse, but mostly because I'm excited to see Jose Deodo on the international stage again. Um,
Hey, it could be a
he
preview for him.
he's he's a very electric player, and I don't think we always got to see that in his time in North America. And so I am excited to see him on the international stage again, where I still think his first international performance with a Latin American team, Rainbow Seven, is the best I've ever seen him play.
He
And
was
so,
insane. He was
yeah,
almost
so I'm
meta
really
defining, if I remember correctly.
he was the best player in the play-ins in any position, and that was a play-in with like fourth seeds from like major regions. He was a monster. LCS fans who are wondering what he's up to, yeah, he's over there making Summit feel bad. So, uh, yeah, I'm excited that because I was like, man, if I'm going to see Summit or Jose at MSI, I'm like, I hope it's Jose, and it is.
You got
So
your
I'm
wish.
excited about that. And yeah, that's about it for me. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jose Deodo, and just he's always a pleasure to watch and a good dude. So that's on the MSI qualification, and I hope that you don't beat Team Liquid.
Yeah, I think that will be at least the week before. I can tell you we will be going through TL and FlyQuest and their
Yes, we
MSI
will.
chances. So keep that in mind. But yeah, guys, with that, we'll catch you on the next one.